Ready to go? Rolling? Yep. Excellent. Be ready to rugby tackle anybody that comes for us. Kit Guru is with Steve Burke of GAMERSNEXUS. I just realised I've got a camera staring in my eyes. It's quite intimidating. It's quite weird.
The camera is?
No, the cameraman.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
he's just there for protection.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. That's fine. Kit Guru has snagged Steve Burke of GAMERSNEXUS. Now, we don't have Gordon Ung of PC World here this year, so I am going to be Honorary Gordon, and Steve Burke is going to be Steve Burke.
I don't know if I can fit those shoes.
I'm not sure I can fit them either. My question, Intel, screwed or what? But more specifically, tell us about the event you attended just before Computex.
You're talking about the Intel Architectural Press Briefing event, where they had a mini keynote and some engineering information that presumably you also were invited to.
Funny you should say that. That would be Lunar Lake, or Core Ultra 200, as I believe they are now admitting it to be. And no, Kit Guru was not invited because it's low power, and apparently that is of no interest to Kit Guru.
Kit Guru wasn't invited?
You say, in shock.
Why?
Because we tried this about 3 times off camera. The thing is, apparently it was of no interest to Kit Guru because Core Ultra 200 low power is something that's not our wheelhouse. So, who was at the event approximately in terms of media?
Well, let me just say something first. Low power, I don't know if you've looked at our channel, also not something we cover. So that's a very interesting reason for them to not invite you.
Let me try that face again. Let me try the face one more time.
So, there's your thumbnail. So, what did you do, Leo, to upset Intel to not invite you? Clearly you have enormous power over Intel. They're a small company, they're getting smaller by the minute. What did you do to upset them so gravely?
You're suggesting there's a backstory, and you are quite correct. Intel launched Meteor Lake, which became Core Ultra 100 just before Christmas, December 15th, as I recall, of last year. And then CES followed 2 weeks after, and just before CES in Vegas, they did a benchmarking event, essentially to educate we media. It was fairly useful. Were you at that event?
I don't think so. That doesn't sound familiar.
You weren't. It was
Thank you for telling me my own whereabouts.
The thing is, they were telling us stuff like, if you make sure your graphics driver is updated, which harks back to your conversations with Tom Peterson on many occasions, because Windows Update will screw with your laptop and will roll back your drivers, and you have to make sure your drivers are correct, and a few other bits and pieces, which AI are you using and that kind of thing, OpenVINO, Microsoft ML. The thing is, I did a video from that event, and this heads towards the kernel of what you're getting at. The video showed an awful lot of laptops blue screening because they, for some reason, hadn't set a thermal limit. So they're running to 120C and then shutting.
That is a hell of a foreshadowing element because they've got some similar problems on desktop now.
So these laptops, which are low power, very clever low power laptops, they'd basically given us the balls out version. It was some version of an MSI laptop that everybody had, and there were like 24 of them in the room. But everybody was running Cinebench because it was quick and easy, and they were just going lock, lock, lock. So I sent a video back to base. You can see where this is going. And the event, and I want to be crystal clear, was called a benchmarking event. Sadly, the video went live, allowing for the 8-hour time difference and communication problems, and it was headed overclocking event. And Intel wasn't happy. And in essence, that's what I did.
So because it was called overclocking event?
Yes.
But I guess I don't understand why that's a problem. Like the distinction between benchmarking and overclocking.
You make a fair point. I think the essence was because the video is showing problems and they could genuinely jump up and down legitimately and say it wasn't that event, your title is wrong. Therefore, they had something they could really point at.
Have you considered not showing problems? Like, what if you just, stopped trying and you just told their story?
like this.
I'm happy about Intel.
The more you buy,
The more you save. The more you buy, the more you save.
I must confess, I hadn't considered that radical approach, but I know for a fact neither have you, so I consider myself to be in good company. But in essence, that was really what it boiled down to. There was a small error, and as it's video, we could change the title. However, it was wrong, and sadly, the video got a fair number of views. 125,000, I think, where our videos typically get 50 to 100. So it did okay. It wasn't 10 million, though.
Well, so I guess the problem I have with all of this is an error is one thing if it was in fact one. But to me, if they said...
If in fact it was one.
I don't know the story. So I'm taking your side by default here. So if it's... I guess what I'm looking at is like, let's just assume Kit Guru screwed up.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if they then tell you the reason you're not coming is because you don't cover this, like just say what it is. Like, are we allowed to swear? Don't, the media.
It's not swearing. So to clarify, after we asked the classic, are we good, or not? And we were told, maybe the dust will settle, the feathers will stop flying. And then it moved on to, when we knew about this event was coming, because everyone told us, and it became a case of, are we blacklisted? And we have it in writing. There is no so-called blacklist. Right. This event is simply not appropriate to you. And they must be telling the truth.
Maybe there's like a not appropriate to you list. Intel's very good at branding and marketing and naming things. Maybe they've chosen a different name for a technically legally distinct list. Okay. And you just happen to be on that one.
I think you may be correct. So, if you don't see me at the Core Ultra 300 event in the future, then I think we can pretty much put the nail in that one, the pin in that one.
I will personally find and surface the list.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So do you know what you missed at the event?
Tell us.
Okay.
Was it really good?
Yes. There were two good things about it. It lasted an entire day. Here's the behind the scenes to press and coverage. So sometimes companies host architecture days. You've been to them. Sometimes they're very good. It can be 8 hours of extremely dense information. Intel's event was first a mini keynote where, interestingly, they mentioned not by name, but Qualcomm and ARM, and several times talked about how x86 is alive and well, and this is the best x86 there's ever going to be. Which, for me, as someone who doesn't cover non-x86, I instantaneously was like, this sounds like something I should be interested in. So, I mean, what's your read on that? Is Intel on the defensive is Intel screwed? Honorary.
And I now switch to Gordon
Yes.
mode. Here's the thing: when they were talking about Meteor Lake with us previously, they're talking about how they'd put together different chips, 4 chips on a base tile, loads of clever packaging stuff, technically interesting stuff. Of course, it didn't necessarily mean the chip was any good or not. And then Meteor Lake came out, and it was tolerably okay, and the AI benchmarks were still in the works. UL Procyon, it was evolving day by day. And then Microsoft pulled a fast one, because as far as I'm concerned, the Qualcomm chips of where you speak, the Elite X, previously Orion, it seems to me that this is Microsoft trying to do Apple. So rather than Apple doing Apple OS on Apple Silicon, this is Microsoft doing Microsoft OS on Qualcomm Silicon. Sadly, it means that Intel is apparently dust beneath their sandals. And this 45 TOPS required for Copilot Plus, that's Microsoft.
Right, yeah. And if I remember correctly, Intel spent a good deal of time talking about how at the time they were hosting the event, I don't know if this is still true, I don't really cover like TOPS and all this AI stuff, but they were very proud to say something along the lines of like, we're the first or whatever to clear that barrier, and we meet the requirement. This was a week before Computex technically started. I don't know if it's changed since then. You may know better than me. But the other thing they talked about a lot, though, was, I should say this first. So you missed 3 lunches, so it was the event starts, and then it was 90 minutes of actual work, 30-minute break, like 60 to 90 minutes of work, 90-minute break, and you can imagine for me, this was infuriating because I was like, I'm here to work. If I want to, I'll go do that somewhere else. So anyway, there was some useful information, mostly from the graphic side, I thought. The core architecture side was kind of interesting, but ultimately it was pretty top level, and anything deeper I couldn't comment on just because we don't cover AI, and that was the big obsession.
But the thing is that you've done a lot of work with Intel Arc graphics,
Yeah.
and I imagine you're quite keen to see how well Battlemage works, because you've had Tom Peterson, I forget, 3-4 times or some such. So you are interested in the nuts and bolts of that, and if their new graphics are better, great. But the thing is, the great unknown is how well the Qualcomm laptops, ARM, will run on Windows.
Right.
Because if it runs like crap, it almost doesn't matter. They have to go back to the drawing board and fix it. But if it's good, and they're claiming up to 26 hours of battery life for some of these laptops, well, 26 versus 12 is more. That's at least 800% better in CEO maths.
Which is not accurate, but is correct.
The more you buy,
The more you save. Yes, the Jensen Huang quote, CEO math is not accurate, but it is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So if Windows runs on ARM correctly, because in the past Windows on ARM was a joke, it was called Warm for that very reason, and it was rubbish. If Windows on ARM this time round runs right, try saying that, then in a way, Lunar Lake might become irrelevant. It might just be that everything just moves.
Well, I think that's kind of what they were trying to get ahead of in the event, because, like I said, it was I think 3 different presenters, 2 who seemed to be engineers, and then 1 who was on the business side, and it was just repeatedly, we're going to blow you away with the x86 performance. It's the best battery life. It's the best tops or whatever buzzwords. So they seem to be concerned about that which you speak, which is being maybe beaten by ARM or Qualcomm, Microsoft, but
Well, that's kind of my thought, you see, because obviously the silicon's all Qualcomm. However, Microsoft Surface is a really big player in all this. There are other companies, like Acer's over there, they're one of them, whereas MSI there is not. Asus is. Funnily enough, we've got a representative sample right here. So Microsoft Surface, who aren't, I believe, at Computex, they are the big beast. They are the kind of MacBook Air in a way. Although, how much of a brand is Microsoft in the retail market compared to Apple?
I feel like Microsoft is not a brand almost. People know Windows, but Microsoft has no brand presence in the way that, so I don't agree with what Apple does, generally speaking, but they have built a very capable reality distortion field and brainwashing machine, in that Apple has this level of branding that almost, it transcends marketing and becomes cult-like. And Microsoft completely lacks that. Like Microsoft it still strikes me as to the general consumer outside of this field as like the boring business, you use this for work, maybe you have it on your home PC, but I don't know, I could be completely wrong, I don't cover laptops really, but Surface just doesn't strike me as the same level of recognition as basically any other brand. So
I completely agree, and I think that's why they're using all these partners such as Acer and Asus for that very reason. I suspect if Microsoft Surface takes off, the other partners might get shuffled to the side somewhat, because that's how these things tend to go. You never see a market you don't like once the cash starts flowing. And if it's a terrible idea, it is your terrible idea. I note that Qualcomm is here at Computex, and the partners have Qualcomm laptops. However, they're not available for purchase for another 2 weeks. So nobody has been able to rush off and actually use one and benchmark the thing in their own environment.
Have you spoken to Charlie?
Demergent.
Semi-accurate? Yeah.
Tell me more.
He ran a story about benchmarking, and yes. And anyway, you should talk to him. I guess I'll leave it there. It's his story.
I think the essence was the figures they claim, not the whole truth, which is why I'm saying if you could rush out and buy one for $1,000 and run your own tests, is it true, is it not true?
I mean, based on from what I understand of his write-up, it sounds like not true, but I don't know if there's any caveats there. That is why. So, I've been saying, I keep like qualifying with we don't test this type of device, but the fact that Intel has suddenly made it kind of relevant, at least to us, has made me now want to go buy some of the Qualcomm devices and actually test them, because I think we could figure out the testing. So if the story becomes, is Intel screwed, to bring it back, because Intel appears defensive, then that is a story we would be interested in covering. Whereas if the story is ARM laptop roundup, that's not our thing. So thank you, Intel, for making another manufacturer now instantaneously relevant to our coverage spectrum.
And I must confess, my view is very similar. It just started some months ago because we kind of got wind of this back in the Meteor Lake times. So yes, I agree. So thank you, Intel. You've made us more interested in Qualcomm than we might otherwise be. And on that happy note, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, Steve.
I deeply apologize for not wearing the official Diamond Geezer polo. As I said in our video, it is a 1 of 1. I am genuinely, I'm going to send you a photo. Hopefully it extends past my stomach and the size is correct.
No promises.
And then you'll have your thumbnail photo with 2 Kit Guru shirts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to close on the Jensen quote,
The more you buy, the more you save.